Everyone, my name is Priyam Dikshit, and today I'll be discussing chapter number 1 of your class 12th political science book 1, the contemporary world politics, और इस चैप्टर का नाम है द कोल्ड वॉर एरा. Now before starting this chapter, मैं इस चैप्टर का आप लोगों को एक ओवरव्यू सा दूंगा, so as to make sure that once I start explaining this chapter to you, you guys have a complete picture of what actually happened during the Cold War period. Now इस book के बारे में भी मैं आपको कुछ चीज़ें बता दूं. This book basically talks of the politics and the political situation that was across the globe after the Cold War era, after the Cold War ended. But before starting or before discussing those phases of the world politics, it is important कि आप लोगों को पता रहे कि what happened during the Cold War. And what was the situation during the time of the Cold War? What kind of alliance system came during the time of Cold War, and how India, जो कि एक इंडिपेंडेंट कंट्री था, and it was not didn't had that big independence history. सिर्फ 12-13 साल ही हुए थे हमारे इंडिपेंडेंस को, 12-13 साल ही हुए थे. तो हाउ इंडिया प्लेड अ क्रूशियल रोल इन कीपिंग इट सेल्फ away from joining any of these two superpowers, जो दो मेन कैंप्स थे, and how it created a third bloc that was an association of countries that were slowly and gradually coming out of the grips of British rule and were gaining independence. How they came together, united, and then played a crucial role in dealing with these two superpowers and gaining economic as well as political benefits out of it. So without wasting any time, let's start this chapter, the Cold War. Now this chapter this chapter provides a backdrop to the entire book. The end of the Cold War is usually seen as the beginning of the contemporary era in the world politics, which is the subject matter of this book. It is therefore appropriate that we begin the story with a discussion on the Cold War. The chapter shows how the dominance of two superpowers, the United States of America and the Soviet Union, was central to the Cold War. It tracks the various arenas of Cold War in different parts of the world. The chapter views the non-aligned movement as a challenge to the dominance of two superpowers and describes the attempts by the non-aligned countries to establish a new international economic order as a means of attaining the economic development and political independence. It concludes with an assessment of India's role in NAM and asks how successful the policy of non-alignment has been in protecting India's interests. Now the overview basically talks about what this book actually consists of. जैसा कि मैंने आप लोगों को पहले ही बताया, this book basically talks about the era after the Cold War ended. Now the era after the Cold War is basically the era that we'll be discussing in this book. But before talking of that era, it is important to understand what happened during the time of Cold War. Now, as you can see, there were two superpowers as mentioned in the book, the United States of America and the Soviet Union. And the third, we cannot say it was a superpower bloc, but the non-alignment is considered as a bloc that was crucial to make sure that somebody can place a kind of a diplomacy, someone can place a group that can place a kind of stop on arbitrary exercise of powers to bring countries under their purview by the two blocks. Now non-alignment, as we can see, was an alignment of which India was a major part of this non-aligned movement, and lastly this chapter basically discusses how the non-aligned movement was successful in creating a system, a kind of global unity that can help these countries to gain economic as well as political benefits. Also, how India was successful in ensuring that its interest is heard at the world politics level. So let's start this chapter. Give me a minute, just. Uh, okay, so let us begin with discussing this chapter. So before we talk of, so first we'll be discussing how this all started. I mean, कैसे ये Cold War situation start हुई? In this beginning of this Cold War situation, the Cuban Missile Crisis is very important because this is regarded as the beginning of every tension that escalated between the two superpowers. So, what was Cuban Missile Crisis? In April 1961, the leaders of Union of Soviet Socialist Republic (USSR) were worried that the United States of America (USA) would invade the communist-ruled Cuba and overthrow the Fidel Castro, the president of the small island nation of the coast of the United States. Cuba was an ally of Soviet Union and received both diplomatic and financial aid from it. Now this is very important. आप लोग इस चीज को मार्क कर लीजिए. इधर कभी-कभी एक 1 मार्क का क्वेश्चन भी आ सकता है. Nikita Khrushchev, the leader of the Soviet Union, decided to convert the Cuba into a Russian base. In 1962, he placed nuclear missiles in Cuba. The installation of these weapons put the US for the first time under the close range and nearly doubled the number of bases or cities in American mainland which could be threatened by the USSR. Now, what this basically talks about, in April 1961 में हुआ क्या कि जो USSR, जैसे हम सोवियत यूनियन कहते हैं, द यूनियन ऑफ सोवियत सोशलिस्ट रिपब्लिक USSR को टेंशन हुई कि जो USA है वो उसका जो एक मिलिट्री बेस जो उसने क्रिएट किया था, दैट इज द क्यूबा, विच इज अ स्मॉल आइलैंड नेशन ऑन द कोस्ट ऑफ द यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स, कहीं वो उसको इन्वेड ना कर दे. US, it was worried, the government was worrying, they were having some sort of worries that the US might invade this island nation that was receiving both diplomatic as well as financial help from the Russia or the USSR. Now for that matter, Nikita Khrushchev did was, who was the leader of the Soviet Union that time, he decided to install missiles, that is nuclear missiles, in Cuba. Now this installation of nuclear missiles it didn't prove as consequences for the US, but it worried the US because these missiles were having the capacity to target some of the major cities of US. Now this brought the US for the first time under the close range of the number of bases or the number of places that can be targeted by the USSR in case of this Cold War turning into a hot war. Moving ahead, 3 weeks. Now, 3 weeks after the Soviet Union had placed the nuclear weapons in Cuba, the Americans became aware of it. The US President John F. Kennedy and his advisors were reluctant to do anything that might lead to a full-scale nuclear war between the two countries. But they were determined to get Khrushchev remove the missiles and the nuclear weapons from Cuba. The Kennedy ordered the American warships to intercept any Soviet ship that was heading towards Cuba as a way of warning to USSR of this seriousness. The clash seemed imminent in what came to be known as Cuban Missile Crisis. Now, अब मैं आपको बताता हूँ इधर आपको important points क्या हैं. 3 weeks after the Soviet Union installed the nuclear weapons, after the 3 weeks when the Soviet Union installed the missiles, nuclear weapons at Cuba, threat under the fear, because of the fear that the US might invade its small island, that was getting diplomatic and financial aid from USSR. The America got aware of it. The American government became aware of it. Now the US president during that time, John F. Kennedy, जो थे जॉन एफ कैनेडी, वो ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं करना चाहते थे कि ये जो कोल्ड वॉर सिचुएशन क्रिएट हो रही है इन दो कंट्रीज के बीच में, ये हॉट वॉर में एस्केलेट हो, बिकॉज ऑफ द फैक्ट दैट it was not more than 15-20 years that they had witnessed a war, second world war. Now they didn't want a third world war to begin, because if that would have happened, it would have led to large scale destruction of not only financial resources but also the natural resources, the human capital. And at the end what would have happened was there would have been no result, because both the countries, both the blocks were equally, not equally but to an extent, they equally matched each other in terms of the military power that they had, not in terms of the economic or the social well-being, but in terms of military power. When we talk, they equally gave each other a great competition in terms of the kind of missiles they had, the kind of nuclear weapons that they have. So John F. Kennedy and his government, his advisors, were reluctant to do anything that might lead to escalation of this Cold War into a hot war. So what they did was, उन्होंने क्या किया, उन्होंने make sure किया that American warships should intercept any of the USSR ships or USSR ships that were heading towards Cuba, so as to create a diplomatic pressure over the USSR to uninstall or to remove these missiles from the Cuba that they have installed. Now this was a kind of a warning that the US was giving to the USSR in order to prevent both the countries from the war kind of situation, as well as forcing the USSR to uninstall or to remove those missiles from it. Now the clash was so harsh, or the situation that was becoming hot was so intense that it appeared that any time the war may happen. But it didn't, obviously it didn't, because of the both countries realizing timely that a full-scale nuclear war will be completely destructive for the whole world, not only for these two countries. Now as you can see, अब यहाँ पे आप लोग इस मैप को देखिए. Now this is the Cuba. If I can point out, yes, this circle. Now look at the range that it is creating. Now look at the range that these missiles are covering, that the USSR has installed. Now look at the range that these missiles can target. Now the range of area that these missiles are covering, it's like an entire of North American continent, and to an extent parts of South American continent as well. Now this is the major reason, what you can say is what made US worried about its cities, not only its safety, about its cities, and about the possibility of USSR attacking it in situation if it feels that in competition the USSR is getting, if USSR feels that the US is posing threat to it, or if USSR feels that they are losing in terms of military competition to US. Moving ahead, give a second. Yeah. The clash made whole world nervous. It would have been no ordinary war. As I said, this clash was so harsh, it was so intense that it was worrying the world कि भाई क्या हो जाएगा? If this happens, then what will happen to us? Because it is practically impossible that the third world countries won't be entering into this war, or they won't be facing the repercussions of this war. So the whole world was worried about this escalating situation. Eventually, to the world's great relief, both the sides decided to avoid the war. The Soviet ships slowed down and turned back. Now, as I said, to the world's greatest relief, both the blocs acted in a matured way. They decided that they realized that a full-scale nuclear war, because they were knowing that United States is also having uh, nuclear weapons, so as the Soviet Union. Now, if something happens, even if minor flicker or minor skirmishes of these soldiers happens in any place between the US and the USSR, then it will lead to crisis, it will lead to war, it will lead to world turning into another battle arena, another arena where the battle between the two nuclear powers will take place. Now, Cuban Missile Crisis was the high point of what came to be known as Cold War. Now, this Cuban Missile Crisis, this entire situation turned or came to be known as the Cold War. The Cold War is referred to as the competition. Now, this is very important. What I am marking, I would request you to mark this in your textbooks. This will help you to prepare your own notes and remember and revise these things in your tests or your exams. Now, the Cold War referred to the competition, the tension, and a series of confrontation between the United States and the Soviet Union, backed by their respective allies. Now, this is very important. Not only the United States and the Russia were in confrontation. Now, there were countries in the Europe. Europe is considered to be as the center or the epicenter of this entire Cold War conflict, because the half of the Europe, that is the Western Europe, was supporting the bloc that was led by US, and the eastern part of the Europe came under the influence of the Soviet Union. Now, this respective allies were very important, because these respective allies in terms of world politics, it is very important, because each and every group was trying to make sure that they have the maximum number of countries under their bloc. तो यूएस भी यही चाहता था कि भाई मेरे पास पूरा यूरोप आ जाए मेरे इन्फ्लुएंस में, और यूएसएसआर भी यही चाहता था कि भाई मेरे पास आ जाए सारा का सारा यूरोप, बिकॉज द वन दैट विल विन विक्ट्री इन यूरोपियन कॉन्टिनेंट will be the one who will be having the most number of allies and having most number of military personals, as well as the better military capabilities. Now, fortunately, however, it never escalated into a hot war, that is a full-scale war between these two powers. There were wars in various regions where the two powers were and their allies involved in the warfare and in supporting the regional allies, but at least the world avoided another global war. Now, there were regions we'll be discussing about where were these regions where these military blocs were having indirect sort of confrontation, where because of which the situation evolved, and then Cuban Missile Crisis took place. We'll be discussing about the places, but to the greatest extent, what happened was that the world avoided another global war. That is very important to note. Moving ahead. Yes. The Cold War was not simply a matter of power rivalries, of military alliances, and of the balance. The Cold War was not simply a matter of power rivalries, military alliances, and of the balance of power. These were accompanied by the real ideological conflict. Now, this is very important. Mark it. the ideological conflict. Now, what was the ideological conflict in this Cold War situation was the differences over the best and the most appropriate way to organizing political, economic, social life all over the world. As I mentioned in the beginning of this chapter, that the confrontation was majorly on the base for who is the best in terms of the military, in terms of organizing the economic life of the people, in terms of social life of the people. And all this tension grew up in conflict where some of the countries were supporting the Soviet Union, that was marked by the, which was following the ideology of communism, and those who backed the US, they were following the ideology, or they were supporting the ideology of capitalism. The Western alliances headed by the US represented the ideology of liberal democracy and capitalism, while the Eastern alliances headed by the Soviet Union was committed to the ideology of socialism and communism. You have already studied it about in class 11th. Of communism. The ideology that was basically followed by the Soviet bloc, those who were the supporters of the Soviet Union, those who were the part of the Soviet bloc, the Second World. Now, communism as an ideology basically talks about the complete state ownership of the property. State ownership of property, when we talk about, we talk of every property that the country has, be it the farms, the production units, the basic facilities that that are provided to the people. All each and every, from pins to cars, everything is produced by the government and everything is sold by the government, and the owners of the production are the state. And socialism is again the ideology of the same. Socialism talks of the social benefits, social steps, or the steps should be taken by the government to make sure that the life of the people, or for the well-being of the people. Socialism is about government or the state of that particular country that is following the ideology of the socialism to make sure that the social life or the well-being of the people is being ensured through the government policies, and it is the responsibility of the government to make sure that people have the basic minimum quality of life. Communism, so these are the two major things that must be very clear about the ideologies that were followed by the two major camps of power, the liberal democracy and the capitalism. Capitalism, when we talk of capitalism, capitalism is the private ownership of the property. Now, when we talk of private ownership, the state doesn't have any role. State has no role in ownership of the properties. People on their own can own the property. People on their own can produce something and they can sell it independently in the market. There is no control of the government. The government has no incentive in make sure uh, they own the resources of the production, or they produce things for the people. There is complete autonomy. The people have the right to own the property and produce according to their own wishes. So this is a major difference between the capitalism and the communism. Capitalism, where we talk of autonomy and private ownership, and communism, when we talk of communism, here we talk of state ownership of the property and state ownership of the resources. Moving ahead, yes, moving ahead, when we talk, yes. So what is Cold War? Now let us begin by entering into the various details of how this Cold War actually started. The Cold War कैसे start हुई? How this Cold War tension reached to the point of Cuban Missile Crisis, where people actually declared that era or that tension officially as the Cold War. Now, basically the beginning of from where this all tension started escalating. Now, the end of the Second World War is the landmark in the contemporary world politics. In 1945, Allied forces led by the US, Soviet Union, Britain, as I mentioned in the beginning of this chapter, the US, Soviet Union, Britain, and France defeated the Axis power. Now, who were these Axis power? That is the Germany, Italy, and Japan, ending the Second World War from 1939 to 1945. The World War had involved almost all the major powers of the world and spread it to the region outside the Europe, including the Southeast Asia, China, Burma, and parts of the India's northeast. The war devastated the world in terms of the loss of the human lives and civilian property. The First World War had earlier shaken the world between 1914 to 1918. Now, there are two major dates that we have to remember. That is, the first is the 1945, when the Allied forces that were led by the USA. Sorry for my writing. I'm not used to this kind of system. The Allied forces that were led by the US, Soviet Union, Britain, and France. They defeated the Axis power. Now, who were the part of the Axis power? Germany, Italy, and Japan, marking the end of the Second World War, which started in 1939 and ended in 1945. अब ये तो हुआ World War II का ending, पर World War II के बीच में क्या क्या हुआ? World War II was not only limited to the landscape or the arenas of Europe, which is regarded as the hotspot of the Second World War, but it spreaded to the areas that were outside of the Europe, including the Asian countries. First is the Russia, then we talk of China, and China, from China it came to the parts of the India's northeastern states and Burma. So and of course, in terms of devastation, it devastated the whole world. Of course, when there is a event, or when there is a tension like world war, then it is bound to take place at a massive scale. When it takes place at a massive scale, then obviously the loss of life is inevitable, the loss of property is inevitable, loss of resources is inevitable. Already previously, before this 1939 Second World War, the world was already shaken because of the First World War that took place. So all these events were like devastation of public property, loss of life, and victories at the cost of human life. Moving ahead. So, the end of Second World War was also the beginning of the Cold War. Now, as I mentioned in the beginning of this chapter, that the end of the Second World War is regarded as the beginning of the Cold War. Now, why? The question should come to your mind कि क्यों Second World War की ending जो है वो Cold War की beginning कहा जाता है? The world war ended when the United States dropped 2 atomic bombs at the Japanese site of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1945. Important to remember कब उन्होंने बॉम्बिंग किया था जापानीज साइट्स ऑफ हिरोशिमा एंड नागासाकी पे? अगस्त 1945, causing Japan to surrender. Now, when this bombarding took place, of course, Japan was not in the position of getting out of it like in 1 or 2 days. No country in the contemporary phase also can recover itself in a week or so when an event like bombarding at some of its places takes place. So this forced the Japan to surrender. Now, when Japan surrendered, there were only only two countries left, that is the Germany and Italy. Now, they won't be able to fight the war on their own because they were getting the backing of Japan only. Then they used to call themselves as a great power, and they were kind of overpowering the bloc that was led by the US, Russia, Britain, and France. Now, critics of the US decision. Now, there was a huge criticism when US bombarded the sites of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. There was a large scale civilian death. Not to forget, when civilian death takes place, it is much more of a concern than the loss of life during the world war. If an event like World War is taking place, then of course the military personnel will die from both the sides. But when you are bombing and that bombing leads to loss of civilian life, it is a matter of criticism, and you can't escape from that kind of a situation. Now, those who are the critics of the US decision of dropping the bombs have argued that US knew that the Japan was about to surrender, and it was unnecessary to drop the bomb. They suggest that the US action was intended to stop the Soviet Union from making military and political gains in Asia and elsewhere, and to show Moscow that the United States was superior to the USSR. Now, those who are the critics, they often argue with this standpoint, with this viewpoint, that US was knowing that Japan was about to surrender. US को पता था कि जापान सरेंडर करने वाला है, पर यूएस ने फिर भी बॉम्बिंग किया. क्यों? क्योंकि यूएस ये चाहता था कि जब वॉर खत्म हो, तो जो सोवियत यूनियन है वो वॉर खत्म होने के बाद जो यूएसएसआर, क्योंकि यूएस को शायद पता था कि it after the end of the Second World War there will be two blocks that will get created, and depending upon the ideologies. But US wanted to be supreme. US wanted that it remains supreme even after the Second World War. So to make sure that it remains supreme at the world politics in terms of the military personnel and the military capabilities, what US did was, US was knowing कि जापान जो है वो एशिया में आफ्टर यूएसएसआर कैन बी अनदर country that can create huge that can come up as a huge military strength, that can come up as a huge military power, country with a huge military power. So what they decided to, so they feel that the US bombarded the Japanese sites so as to give a signal to the Moscow, that is the that is the present day capital of Russia, and at that time it was the capital of the Soviet Union. So critics feel that they bombarded the Japanese site of Hiroshima and Nagasaki to send a signal to the Moscow that US was supreme in terms of its military capabilities, and US won't be back. US won't show its back to anyone who shows eyes to it, which means कि यूएस कभी भी झुकने वालों में से नहीं है. यूएस कभी भी अपने घुटने नहीं टेकेगा अगर कोई अपनी मिलिट्री स्ट्रेंथ से उसको आंख दिखाने की कोशिश करेगा. एंड अगेन अनदर थिंग टू मेंशन, यूएस ये भी चाहता था कि आफ्टर द एंड ऑफ द सेकेंड वर्ल्ड वॉर मॉस्को, जो कि सोवियत यूनियन, उस टाइम सोवियत यूनियन कैपिटल है, वो कोई मिलिट्री गेन्स ना ले पाए जापान से. इतना हम जापान को डेवेस्टेट कर दें, इतना हम जापान को उसकी खुद की प्रॉब्लम से रिकवरी में बिजी कर दें कि जापान फाइनेंशियल, ना तो कोई फाइनेंशियल एड दे पाए किसी को, ना ही मिलिट्री एड. Moving ahead, now those who are now there are obviously, if there are some critics, there will be supporters who will back the US decision and who will feel that it was very important for US to take the decision because the tension was such that it was necessary to end war anytime and as soon as possible. Now, US supporters have argued that the dropping of the atomic bomb was necessary to end the war quickly and to stop the further loss of life of Americans and the Allied lives. Now, those who are the supporters, they back this decision of the US by the fact that the US, it may happen that US might be knowing that Japan might surrender, but they were not knowing when it will surrender. So when you don't know about when a country will surrender, it is important to end the war as soon as possible. And for ending the war, US thought that there is only one way out, that is the dropping bomb on the Japanese sides, to make Japan busy in its own reconstruction, and to make Japan busy in its own affairs. Whatever the motives, the consequences of the end of the Second World War was the rise of the two new superpowers at the global stage. अब जो कुछ भी डिसीजन रहा हो, जो कोई भी रीजन रहा हो यूएस का रिगार्डिंग द बॉम्बिंग ऑफ द जापानीज साइड, The end of the Second World War led to the development of two camps, development of two new powers at the global stage. With the defeat of the Germany and Japan, the devastation of the Europe and many other parts of the world, the United States and the Soviet Union became the greatest powers in the world with the ability to influence events anywhere on the earth. Now, previously, we were knowing before the Second World War, we know that Germany was coming as a Germany was rising as a new superpower. Also, there was at that time before the Second World War, Britain was a great superpower. But after the devastation that took place during the Second World War in Europe, it forced the Europe to think about itself for a considerable phase of time. It was necessary for the Europe to think about itself and to think on reconstruction of its economy, reconstruction of the social life and the economic life of the people. So when this continent, the European continent, and the countries that were lying in the European continent were busy in its own development, in its own reconstruction, it led to the rise of two superpowers. Why? Because and who were those superpowers? The United States and the Soviet Union. Why they became superpower? Because got they didn't face any kind of devastation during the time of war. They were only partners to support those who were fighting the war for the right cause. यूएस और रशिया को टू एन एक्सटेंट कोई भी डिस्ट्रक्शन या डेवास्टेशन फेस करना नहीं पड़ा था. क्यों? क्योंकि ये लोग तो सिर्फ एक जो टू साइड्स थी, वेदर इट इज एक्सेस पावर और द एलाइड फोर्सेस, ये एलाइड फोर्सेस को सपोर्ट इसलिए कर रहे थे क्योंकि they knew that the axis power is only going to cause destruction, and they are just fighting this war just to show this world that yes, we can rule this world. They were fighting, they didn't have the right cause. They, of course, if the those who are causing destruction at such a level, the Nazis Germany was causing this, they were like uh, escalating as a country that can rule the entire world. Now, under such kind of situation, what was important was to make sure that these two countries fight for the right cause and they come together. So they didn't face any, they were only providing the financial and the military support, but they didn't have any kind of loss of life in terms of in their own country or in their own individual country. But the Europe did. So the time for the European countries was to just make sure that they reconstruct themselves again. While the Cold War was an outcome of an emergence of US, while the Cold War was an outcome of emergence of US and USSR as two superpowers rival to each other, it was also rooted in the understanding that the destruction caused by the use of atom bombs is too costly for any country to bear. The logic yet powerful The logic is simple yet powerful. When two rival powers are in the possession of nuclear weapons capable of inflicting death and destruction at an unacceptable rate, or rather unacceptable to each other, a full-fledged war is unlikely. In spite of the provocations, neither side would want to risk the war, since no political gains justify the destruction in their societies, of the destruction of their society. Now, while we know that this Cold War was an outcome of the emergence of two superpowers at the global level. First is the USSR and the USSR and the US. What they were knowing at that time, because of having in the backdrop of having a history of the World War II, where the destruction that was caused because of the bombing of atom bombs at the Japanese sites, what they were knowing was that the destruction that will be caused because of the use of atom bombs, or the destruction that will take, because now both the camps have nuclear weapons, and it is to an extent inevitable to not to use these weapons during the time if the war escalates, if another war escalates. If the war escalates, then they will have to use these weapons for their own defense, and if they use these weapons, they know the kind of destruction that has previously took place in Japan, and such kind of destruction is too costly for any country to bear. कोई भी country इस लेवल का डिस्ट्रक्शन बर्दाश्त नहीं कर सकती. इवन टुडे ऑल्सो जापान इज फेसिंग रिपरकशंस ऑफ that bombing that took place, the consequences of those bombing at those two sites. Japan is still facing that ire. So it was rooted in their basic understanding that we won't lead this tension escalate into a hot war, because if this situation escalates into a hot war, then of course both the camps will try to win this war through any means possible. And when it comes to using any means possible, they can use nuclear weapons. When they will use nuclear weapons, of course the destruction that will be caused because of the use of these nuclear weapons is inevitable and can't be accepted. No society can bear the and no society can justify the benefits that are gained because of the new if suppose US uses nuclear weapons against USSR, then the destruction that will be, of course, if US wins the war by using the full-fledged nuclear weapons against the USSR, if US wins the war, but how will US justify the destruction that is being caused because of using of such bombs in the USSR? They have and almost the entire population will die. So in a barren land, if you are controlling a barren land, it's of no use, because you can justify. What will you do on a barren land? You can't plant anything for almost 30, 40, or upcoming 50 years. There won't be any kind of proper uh, human evolution that will take place. No human evolution will take place. No human development can take place in such an area. So no society can bear such destruction. So that's why it is said that a full-fledged war is unlikely, despite of provocations. In the event of nuclear war, both the sides will be so badly harmed that it will be impossible to declare one side or the other as winner. Even if one of them tries to attack and disable the nuclear weapons of its rival, the other would still be left with. Now, this is very important. Tries Even if one of them tries to attack and disable the nuclear weapons of its rival, the other would still be left with enough nuclear weapons to inflict unacceptable destruction. This is called the logic of deterrence. Now you know that even if, as I mentioned before, uh, even if one country, say US or the Allied forces or the bloc that is led by US, tries to attack the USSR, so as to make sure that the USSR don't use any kind of nuclear weapons against it, the USSR will still be left with enough nuclear weapons to make sure that US gets completely devastated. They cause immense destruction to US. So they both know what are their military capabilities. They both know that even if they try to use nuclear weapons to deactivate the nuclear weapons of the other side, the other side will still be left with enough weapons to cause massive destruction to their own to them. So this is called the logic of deterrence. Now both the sides have the capacity to retaliate against an attack and cause so much destruction that neither can afford to initiate the war. Both the sides have the capacity to retaliate against an attack and to cause so much destruction that neither can afford. Of course. Now this is the basic definition of what we call as deterrence. Both the sides know their military capabilities, and both the sides know that they can't afford to attack each other, because if that takes place, then this retaliation will come, and the retaliation will cause so much destruction that it will be a kind of equal destruction that will be caused to both the countries who are part of war. And of course the loss of life is inevitable, and after such war you cannot declare anyone as winner, because if you declare, then you have to justify these benefits that they have got because of this war, and the benefits after a nuclear war are zero, absolutely zero. Thus the Cold War, in spite of being an intense form of rivalry between the great powers, remained cold and not hot or shooting war. The deterrence relationship prevents war, but not the rivalry between the powers. So as a result, because of this logic of deterrence, because of both the sides knowing the quantum of destruction that will take place in case Cold War escalates into a hot war,
So they, knowing the repercussions that both the sides have to face, this war didn't escalated into a hot war or a shooting war. But despite of this not getting despite of the situation of Cold War not getting not turning into a hot war, there were consequences. This doesn't stop the rivalry. Okay, if you are if we are if say for example in present day situation, India and China. Now India and China, as we know, they know both the countries have, India also knows that China has a large amount of nuclear weapons. China also knows that India has large amount of nuclear weapons, so as the China. Now they know that they can't fight a war in such a situation, because if they fight a war, then they'll be using, if suppose China starts a war against India, then they know that India will do anything to guard its borders, to guard its sovereignty, to guard its international borders. So for guarding it, it can go to any extent, using nuclear weapons as well. So under such a situation, it is very difficult for them to it is next to impossible for them to start a war. So as the India knows that if they start war with China, that China has huge amount of nuclear weapons, much more than India, and if they try to start a war, then they'll have to face the ire of that war. But despite of they knowing the fact that none of the powers, neither India nor China, can start a war against each other, this doesn't end their rivalry. They try to they try to enter into the Indian borders across Ladakh and Sikkim. They'll try to fire. They'll try to attack Indian soldiers, not with weapons, but through any other means that can at least lead to bit, that can that they can declare as basic skirmishes that are taking place between the militaries. But they'll never try to escalate that situation or to create a situation of war, because they know both the countries have the capacity to retaliate in case the situation turns or situation goes wrong, or the thing if the things go wrong. Now, note the main military feature of the Cold War. Two superpowers and the countries in the rival blocs, led by the superpowers, were expected to behave as a rational and responsible actors. They were to be rational and responsible in the sense that they understood the risk of fighting the war involve that might involve the two superpowers. When two superpowers, sorry. Now note that the main military feature of Cold War, the two superpowers and the countries led by the two superpowers were expected to behave as a rational and responsible actors. They were to be rational and responsible in the sense that they understood the risk of fighting wars that might involve the two superpowers. When the two superpowers and the blocs led by them are in the deterrence relationship, fighting war is massively destructive. Now, the main military feature we will be discussing. What was the main military feature? Both the camps were knowing, camp led by USSR, the camp led by US, that both of them have military capabilities in terms of nuclear weapons. Now, so they were to act rationally in terms of not making the situation or preventing the situation to from going in, preventing the situation turning so hot that it may lead to a full scale war between the two camps. Because if this happens, they know again it's not much time before the World War II ended. So it is important not to prevent the situation from turning into a hot war. So they were to act as a rational partners, because if the war starts, they will have to support their alliance. If the war starts, they will have to support their alliance in terms of military power, in terms of financial power, in terms of any power, in terms of any support they wanted. So the role of the partners, or the role of the partners the role of the countries who were the partners of these two camps, was to make sure that the act in a rational way, so as to make sure that in a deterrence relationship, prevent the massive destruction that can be caused due to the war.